ABC, where I'll be seeing you in the Green Hornet. I am Bruce Lee, inviting you to join me every Friday night on most of these ABC stations.
The next Bat villain is so diabolical, so diseased. Bert and I needed the help of 2 more crime fighters to put him behind bars.
Holy Cape collaboration!
That's right, old chum. This time Batman is joined by the Green Hornet and his sidekick, Kato.
Excuse me, Adam, can you tell me the quickest way to Gotham Square Garden?
I think it's over there, Van.
Oh, thanks, Adam. Bert.
I guess you just never know who might show up.
Just like in this next episode.
As we last took leave of Batman and Robin, the Green Hornet had been made into a rare stamp and then thumbtacked to a wall by the corrupt Colonel Gumm. With Kato still being blocked and perforated in Gumm's shameful stamping machine and the dynamic duo to follow. Once they're unglued from Gumm's glue pad, for you who've breathlessly waited and wondered, some man-hours have passed. For the Caped Crusaders, mere moments, as we shall see in a moment.
Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave Podcast. It's your old bat chum, John S. Drew here. And, you know, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, how this podcast is nearing the end of the second season, and we've looked at it in different ways as maybe this is the end of the actual series before the reboots with Batgirl and such. But, you know, as much as we've been talking about it, it didn't hit me until earlier today when I sent out the reminder emails to those who are participating in the first 2 episodes of the 3rd season. And then it was like, oh wow, we're really going to do this. We're going to talk about Batgirl soon. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am, because I have a new perspective on how to approach the 3rd season, considering how many fans feel it brought about the end of the Batman 66 television series in general. And since we're coming to the end of the 2nd season, I just want to let you all know, if you want to get your thoughts and ideas in on the 2nd season overall, make sure you're heading on over either to thebatcavepodcast.com, writing me at thebatcavepodcast@gmail.com, or heading over to our Facebook page, because there will be, just like we did with the 1st season, a retrospective of the 2nd season. Now, turning to today's episode, we're finally coming to something that a lot of fans have been looking forward to, and I've been of mixed thoughts about it, that being the Green Hornet Kato episode. And I'm going to say Green Hornet Kato. I know a lot of people just say Green Hornet, but you know, Kato was a big deal as well when it came to that series and such, and Bruce Lee elevated Kato to a sort of cult status there. Now, you had Green Hornet and Batman, 2 television shows, 2 legends just colliding together, and I thought, you know what we got to do? We've got to bring in another Batman podcaster, not just anybody here, but Justin Michael of Batman the Animated Podcast. Justin, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, I'm
excited to be here.
Now, wow, it's like Batman the Animated Series. I gotta take a few moments and ask you, like, what was the impetus to do your show?
I mean, I grew up loving Batman, all things Batman. So, I mean, I'm a 90s baby, or I guess I was born in the 80s. But so my first introduction to Batman was Batman 89. I went to see it in theaters as a kid. And then my mom showed me Batman, the Adam West series. So I would religiously watch that, more so the movie than the TV show, actually. Then when the animated series came out, that was kind of my Batman, So recently, I guess within the last 6 months, I was just, there are a lot of podcasts popping up about people talking about their favorite TV shows, and, be it The Simpsons or Twin Peaks or your podcast, And I was like, why don't I just talk about the show that I could talk about endlessly? Why not do that? It's my favorite thing to do, and, get to talk with friends and fans and people who made the show. So I think it's an amazing iteration of Batman. So yeah, that's why I wanted to do it.
Well, yeah, I mentioned before the show that, I wasn't the biggest animated series fan, but you've, through the podcast, you've elevated it for me because I really look forward to your show every 2 weeks. And I got to give you a lot of credit, to line up the guests, to do the interviews and such, and put it out in a timely fashion, because there's not just a simple matter of, hey, let's talk Batman. You get creative with your comedy bits and stuff. And I, in particular, I'll always say my favorite one of them all is Two-Face the Musical.
Oh, man, that's one of my favorites. My friend Zach Reno helped do all the music for that, but we definitely listened to the score to the actual Batman the Animated Series episode and kind of created some musical riffs based on that. It was fun to make an upbeat version of a really sad episode.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that you like, the show. I created a torture machine for myself by putting it out every 2 weeks and lining up guests and doing stupid comedy bits. But I'm glad that people like it. It makes it worth it, because I'll be up till like 4 a.m. I'm sure you've had your editing late nights at some point or another.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the thing. It's like, what was I thinking every 2 weeks, because I do this, and I also have another podcast on Shazam and ISIS, which comes out twice a month. So it's like, what the heck was I thinking?
Right? But it's the best. The payoff is the best. When you're done, you're like, I did it.
And the fact that the fans react well, as they are with your podcast, which, I'm really happy to see.
Yeah, it's been really cool getting to connect with fans. I guess that's one of my favorite parts that I didn't even quite think about. I honestly started it kind of for me, very selfishly, like, I just want to talk about this show. And then I don't talk day to day about Batman the Animated Series with everybody, maybe a couple buddies. So the fact that there are now people from across the world that are like, hey, I love this show too. It's really cool. It's like the very positive side of nerddom, because I feel like, there's also that dark, critical, angry, Haiti internet nerd as well. And
yeah,
luckily I haven't encountered that too much.
Right. My friend, Keith DeCandido, who's appeared on this podcast a couple of times, put it best. He said that, podcasting allows us to indulge in our, I almost want to say fetishes, but it's like, to the point where we indulge in those things we love so much that maybe not everybody necessarily understands all the time, but we do it in a way that then once they listen to it, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the coolest part of it, is that he's right. Like, it really is like a fetish. Like, we all just get to indulge and talk rambly style. There you go. There's a sentence that wouldn't appear in something that was normal other than a podcast.
Yeah, you wouldn't hear that on NPR.
Oh, no, I'd be kicked off. They'd throw me into a pile of dirt.
All right, so let's talk about this episode. Let's ramble on here. The episodes are called A Piece of the Action and Batman's Satisfaction. They aired on March 1st and 2nd, 1967. And, like I said, I'm of two minds when it comes to this, because honestly, it's a little odd when you consider what William Dozier tried to establish with the Green Hornet show, to suddenly say, okay, here's Green Hornet, who's a lot more of a straight-laced, grittier type of hero, and we're putting him in the Gotham logic of Gotham City and Batman and such. And, and just to make sure we understand this is going to be different, the show opens right off the bat with the Green Hornet and Kato arriving. Although they said it was midnight, it didn't look much like midnight when Black Beauty pulled up to the place, did it?
Yeah, it was a very bright midnight.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually did not have any familiarity with the Green Hornet before seeing this episode as a kid. So I was like, I knew that they were important because they were guest stars and they were heavily featured, but I was like, who are these people? Why are they in Batman? Where's Batman? Where's Robin? Like the beginning of the episode was very to a child.
You know what? You're right. Maybe that's why I had such a problem with it as a kid, because again, they weren't making jokes. I mean, here comes another hero and they're not making jokes. They're being fairly serious. Although I thought it was odd because I guess that was Batman logic when, after the encounter with Colonel Gumm, the Green Hornet and Kato step outside and the Hornet says to Kato, I think we've got everything we need to wrap this up tomorrow night. I'm like, you do?
Yeah, wait, what are you going to do? Please fill us in. I mean, it was, I know you had mentioned, maybe it was over email, that you were like, yeah, this isn't one of my favorites necessarily. As a kid, I think I just liked the idea of a team up, no matter who it was with, was really cool. So I was like, all right, I'm on board. I don't know who they are, but they seem important. It's a crossover.
Yeah. I will say, in watching it now and taking my notes and noticing certain things, I've come to appreciate it more. In particular, how they managed to work in strains of the Green Hornet theme, which I never caught as a kid because, like you, I really didn't know who the Green Hornet was as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, like the nods to the Green Hornet theme were amazing. That, kind of underscoring every now and then. And the fact that the spinning bat symbol was green every time.
I miss that.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it seemed deliberate.
Yeah, no, it would be. I would think so. There's only one other time they've ever played with the spinning bat signal thing, and that was in the Marcia Queen of Diamonds episode, which was so off-the-wall bonkers that they sped it up and made it really sound like, a comedy transition. So that makes sense that they actually...
Yeah.
I got to go back and look at that now.
I think it's cool when, I don't know, shows kind of have that attention to detail.
Right.
Like, okay, we're going to change up the normal thing that we always have every episode and kind of sub it out, and it makes it feel more special.
Because you say you've never seen an episode of The Green Hornet.
No, never.
Okay, I'll remedy that for you. I'll get you some episodes, but
tell me which ones are the best.
Oh, okay. I could definitely do that for you too. It's interesting because we're talking about the transitions and stuff. As much as I'm like railing or so, saying, not fair, Green Hornet's more serious, shouldn't be on Batman and such. Green Hornet lifted a lot of gimmicks from Batman, including having his own Hornet transition thing between each episode. It wasn't spinning, it was sort of just like zooming in and out.
Okay.
It's not entirely, and I think that's maybe why the show failed in the end, because people were still waiting for the joke and the punchline, and there never was a punchline. It was all serious.
It was straight action?
It was straight action.
Well, which is tough, because that's the best thing about this show, is that it's straight action to kids and it's comedy to adults or smart kids. But I know when I watched it, it was just an action series. Like, I was so excited to watch Batman 66, like the original, whatever, the movie, over and over and over, because I was like, this is, just a cool team up between all of the best villains. And then rewatching it as an adult, it's so funny.
Yes.
Adam West is so funny.
He is. And
I'm sure you've talked about it a million times.
Oh, yeah. No, we did a whole episode. I brought in a gang of people to talk about that one. And in that movie, I think the best parts of it are actually when Adam West gets to be Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great. And well, that's what I liked about this episode, is we had that kind of Green Hornet Batman rivalry, but we also had, who is it, Britt Reed? Is that the name of, or is that the actor who plays the Green Hornet?
No, Van Williams was the actor. Britt Reed was the character.
Okay, yeah, Britt Reed, Bruce Wayne rivalry as well, which I thought was really fun to see back to back in the episode. Like the kind of, it was almost a flirt off inside of a restaurant with supermodels just wandering over.
Oh yeah, and I want to talk about one supermodel in particular when we get to that. But you're right, and I actually liked the bantering back and forth between Britt and Bruce more than Batman and Green Hornet.
Yeah, it was much more interesting. It was funny, too.
Yeah. So the next morning, Pinky Pinkston, the woman who runs the pink chip stamp factory that the Green Hornet and Kato busted into, she calls the police because she noticed the Hornet from her apartment across the street during the night. Now, I find it interesting, though, that she notices a man going in and, in with a dark car there and such, but she's never been aware, up until now, that there's something shady about Colonel Gumm.
Right. She's up at midnight, which is daytime in Gotham City, apparently, spying on, just a man lurking out in the open, but she's never noticed the guy right under her nose who sounds like Snidely Whiplash.
Yes. Oh. Roger C. Carmel, though, it's, again, as a kid, I didn't appreciate him, but I actually really loved him in this with all his disguises and such, and how I thought it was interesting. It took Batman until the very end to realize that, he was playing all these roles, whereas Britt Reed was onto it pretty early on.
Yeah, I guess they had to give Britt Reed something. You know, the Green Hornet had to kind of be a cool hero, so they maybe threw him the bone in this episode since he was the guest star. He almost felt more important than the villain because, you know, usually the villains are showcased in these episodes, but it felt like Colonel Gumm kind of got the short end of the stick a little bit. It was more about the team-up.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. I mean, even in the opening credits, where usually we get a guest villainess credit, all we get is guest visiting hero.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that's probably another reason why they didn't have any, you know, like Frank Gorshin or Cesar Romero, is those guys probably had such a, ego about being on the show, not in a bad way, just like if they were going to be there, they should be the stars. So they probably weren't going to play second banana to the Green Hornet.
And yet, despite that, I still say Roger C. Carmel steps it up, and he, shines in his own way, even though, yeah, he is. And I think that's, as a kid, that's probably why, we've been talking about these second season villains who worked and didn't work, like the Archer or Marcia, Queen of Diamonds. And I always lumped Colonel Gumm in there with them. But as I was watching this, I'm like, he's actually not bad. He did a good job. Yeah.
I think I didn't like him as a kid because he wasn't the Joker or the Riddler or the Penguin or Catwoman. Not because he was bad. It was just like, as a kid, you want to see the four main villains that you know. But watching it now, he was, wonderfully over the top and he was very percussive. I liked that about him.
Yes. Yeah, as a kid, he was this guy in a pink jumpsuit. And it was like, yeah. I didn't appreciate the little nuances of his performance. And again, like another villain that I never gave credit to as a kid, the Minstrel, played by Van Johnson earlier on in the second season. I didn't give the character enough credit for the nuances they did to the character. His loving the alphabet soup, his being a master of disguise and such like that.
Yeah, I think we just wanted those big name villains as kids, and we were the ones driving the smaller named villains into the grave.
Well, that's part of what I'm trying to do here, is elevate some of them here on the Batcave podcast. And it's working. Some people do actually come forward and say to me, you know what, you're right, Minstrel wasn't so bad. So
that's good.
Yeah. We cut to Bruce and Dick, who are, talking about stamp collecting, keeping the theme here going. And actually,
how very coincidental.
Exactly.
This new stamp you've added to your collection is beautiful, Bruce.
Supposedly it's a very rare issue, the famous Blue Boar of Russian Samara. But I have my doubts about the watermark.
Watermark?
Yes, this one's barely visible. Yes, Alfred?
The red phone, sir.
But, I like it because I've always said whenever they had these openings that had a bearing on the story, it lended more and it made the opening more believable. There are other times where, we're just going to go fishing or we're just going to, and it was like, okay, off we go. So this has some bearing, including with its almost indistinguishable watermark. That's going to have a bearing throughout the rest of the episode. So they get the call from Gordon and off they go, heading for the bat poles, but Britt Reed calls. And I did like this because it's, it's funny, as I'm watching it, the flow of conversation just seemed very natural.
Yes, Commissioner. We have strong reason to believe that arch-criminal the Green Hornet is operating in Gotham City, Batman.
We'll run wide open.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, at a moment like this, but Mr. Britt Reed is on the other telephone. He's in town and would like
Find out where he's staying and tell him I'll call him later.
To the bat poles!
Sometimes when they do these kind of, interrupting someone in the midst of their speech, it seems awkward. This just flowed nicely.
Yeah, the flow of dialogue was real fun, and it played up on the comedy of nobody knew who anybody was, but they were all trying to reach each other within their different disguises.
Yes. So we get to Police Commissioner Gordon's headquarters, and, we get this whole bit, and at first I don't seem to remember as a kid this playing out more, but as I was watching the episodes again, it did too. This whole thing about the Gotham Gothic. What's the deal with the Green Hornet? He can't just be going in for trading stamps. Just out of curiosity, because you say you're an 80s, 90s kid, did they have trading stamps at that time?
I don't really remember if they had any new ones. My dad had a big stamp collection, but beyond that, no, not that I know. I mean, I think it was on its way out, it felt like.
Right, yeah.
But, we had pogs, pieces of cardboard that were less functional than a stamp.
Right. Well, see, with these stamps, because they're called trading stamps, because what they would do is that you collect the stamps, and then if you collected so many books, you could turn them in and get prizes.
Oh, that's cool.
So, it also lends to something there in the fact that, Colonel Gumm is creating counterfeit stamps, probably selling them on his own, to make some extra money. And then, these people are going to turn them in and they're going to realize, oh, no, these are no good. You can't get any prizes.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. I didn't get that when watching it last night or 2 nights ago.
Yeah. But still, just the same, Batman can't believe that that's all the Green Hornet's looking for, a piece of that action. And then he brings up the Gotham Gothic and Pinky's father, who owned the stamp that went missing a long time ago. And here's where we get, actually, like you said, we get Batman and Green Hornet, Britt and Bruce, but now we also get Britt and Batman kind of doing a little bit of verbal sparring.
Commissioner. Come in, good to see you. Good to see you. And as luck would have it, our famed Cape Crusaders, Batman and Robin.
Batman?
Welcome, Mr. Reed.
Thank you. Robin?
I did.
Sit down and make yourself at home.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a mutual friend, Batman. Millionaire Bruce Wayne. In fact, I'm having lunch with him today.
Oh? Give him my regards.
We were just discussing a criminal, Mr. Reed, with whom you are no doubt familiar. The Green Hornet from your own bailiwick.
Just between us boys, Mr. Reed, we have reason to suspect he'll be pulling some shenanigans in our own bailiwick.
The Green Hornet? In Gotham City? Well, that shouldn't disturb you, Batman. Your name is legend among crime fighters.
Legends are sometimes highly overrated, Mr. Reed.
No 2 men were more obviously Batman and the Green Hornet.
And yet Pinky will turn around later and start to believe that it's the reverse.
I loved that. I thought that was such a fun way of playing it.
Yeah. So we cut to Colonel Gumm and we find out, like we said, his game is counterfeit rare stamps. And like I said, I liked this because it's not a world domination or even Gotham domination, but it's still a scheme, which is something we've been lacking in a lot of episodes in this second season. Is an actual scheme. We've just been seeing random moment to moment. There's an actual scheme going on here. Pinky shows up, and I like this also because at the beginning I thought maybe she was a little dumb. She definitely is a little ditzy. She's got a pink dog there named Apricot and all, but she pieces it together. She's like,
Colonel Gumm, have you heard the latest news broadcast?
No, Miss Pinkston. I've been too busy.
Isn't that a shame, Apricot? Colonel Gumm has been too busy manufacturing pink chip stamps to know that this morning's intruders may have been the Green Hornet and his masked accomplice.
What would they be doing in Gotham City?
What would they be doing in my factory, Apricot?
She was the one who was pointing stuff out, even though she does have a silly dog.
Even though she does have a silly dog.
I love this is a detour, but the fact that the dog had its own seat at the table with Britt and Bruce, and that Bruce was engaging with the dog was really funny.
And that's something they would follow through to the very end, even in the last scene.
Yeah, it was great. It was so funny just watching Adam West very seriously engage a painted poodle or some sort of dog.
Yeah. Yeah, and then she gets the last line going, Bruce, you don't talk to dogs. That's silly. Even though she's doing it all the time throughout the episode, there's even one part there where she's like, an Apricot, yes, I'm really talking to you now. Get me out of this.
I loved it.
Yeah. All right. Now, we cut back to the Batcave, and the Bat computer, it's funny. I love the Bat computer in this episode, and I hate the Bat computer in this episode, because the Bat computer is really acting like a computer as the duo attempt to figure out the Hornet's identity. It can only determine answers based on the information it has available. It has no information. It even can't figure out who Batman and Robin are. All it can say is, dual crime fighters. And I would even imagine with the dual identity sensor that Batman wants to install, it would still not be able to come up with an absolute answer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Bat computer was just a vehicle to spit out alphabet soup, I guess, at this point.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, and later on, he's going to feed alphabet soup into it. And even Robin's looking at him going, what are you doing? And he's like going, it's digestible. It's soft. Don't worry. The computer can I just thank God that, today you don't have kids thinking they can pour their, alphabet soup onto their laptops.
If that's the case, I got to go take my apple into the Apple store.
Oh, could you just see the expression on their face when you walk in? What happened there? Oh.
Well, I watched a Batman episode and I poured soup on my laptop because I thought that's how the world works.
Yeah. Hey, back in the 60s and 70s, they had to give out warnings. Kids, don't be like George Reeves as Superman. Don't be like Adam West. You can't leap around like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's the odd kid or two out there who's pouring soup onto their laptop or their desktop or something, or even mom's iPhone.
Yeah, better doing that than punching people, so,
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So we open with Act 2, and this is the lunch scene you were talking about there, where we've got women, as they're eating lunch, there's women parading around in lingerie. Now, I was told never to eat food in such places. It just, especially if they put out the buffet, you just avoid it.
In that kind of restaurant?
In, any place you've got women scantily clad and food available, you sort of don't eat the food. Have a few beers, pay the 2-drink minimum, and then move on.
Yeah, get out. Probably not going to be the best 5-course meal.
Yes. I did we've got Angelique Pettyjohn, who plays Shirley, one of the girls who flirts with Britt in this episode.
Oh, that is beautiful. Beautiful. What's it called?
Shirley.
A peignoir named Shirley?
No, I'm Shirley. Lingerie Bazaar. Off at 6.
And I have this thing for Angelique Pettyjohn. I just, she was on Star Trek, the original series. She was in that episode, Gamesters of Triskelion. She was one of the warriors that fight Chekhov, Uhura, and Kirk. And that episode aired on the day I was born. So to me, it's like there's just something about Angelique Pettyjohn, who would later go on to do some porn movies, but she was quite striking, I always thought.
Yeah, and she made her appearance in Batman, which is pretty cool. Yes. What other porn actors have made an appearance in Batman?
Can't think of any now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so that's its own weird crossover.
Yes. And, I love this, too, because Pinky's picking the brains of the two of them, trying to because she's concerned about her business and such. And, of course, they're both trying to impress her by offering help, right, including, Bruce saying, I'll get Batman for you in on the case and such. It's like, really? All the other times you've always said, that, you barely know Batman. You've tried to distance yourself. And now for this woman, you're willing to reveal all almost.
Yeah, he had that kind of male bravado kick in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a fun dynamic to watch them play against each other.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Absolutely, it was a fun dynamic. They, again.
And we get more Apricot, so that's all I care about. That's my favorite Batman character, past, present, any iteration, Apricot the dog.
Apricot the dog. They missed a beat there when with the animated series. They should have had Apricot on.
I know. Where was that 2-parter?
Wow. So after this, Bruce takes Britt to his stamp dealer to find out about the Blue Boar stamp that we were talking about earlier. And again, Roger C. Carmel, he's playing the Russian stamp dealer. He was also the British diner in the restaurant, overhearing Britt and Bruce talking to each other. I really liked just his whole portrayal. And again, I like the whole thing that they work in the Gotham Gothic as Bruce tries to, see if he can feel out the stamp dealer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact that he got to play every kind of accent was really fun, too.
Yes. Let's see. He did Russian. He did Spanish, because at the very end, he's the Bilardo. I have it here somewhere. And the British diner.
Yeah.
So he got to stretch his acting wings there and show off as well. But I liked it. I mean, I've always remembered Roger C. Carmel from Star Trek. He was Harry Mudd. So, and maybe that's part of the reason why it's like, to me as a kid, sorry, but maybe I was typecasting, saying, oh, he's just Harry Mudd. He can't be on Batman.
Yeah, it is weird seeing people outside of iconic roles, and then suddenly it's like, wait a minute, why are you in this?
Well, as a kid.
Right, yeah, not as an adult.
Not as an adult. I mean,
An adult, I'm furious about it.
So after they leave, Gumm calls, the warehouse and such, talks to Reprint. Reprint's telling him about the beautiful set of stamps he's just done. You can never tell that they're fake. And that's when he looks up and there's Pinky standing over him. She's caught now and she's onto the whole thing.
Yeah, sorry, Pinky. Shouldn't have been sniffing around that glue.
What's interesting is that we're actually going to have a little time pass before she confronts Gumm. And I'm thinking to myself, she never once said, let me go call the cops and let them in on it. Or for that matter, Reprint didn't grab her then.
Yeah, they really did stretch that out a little bit.
Yeah. Because we get to then later on that evening, and Britt is getting ready to go out.
I'm certain that Bruce Wayne, slippery stamp dealer, and the foreman of the pink chip stamps factory are the same man, Kato.
Involving a counterfeit stamp ring we are trying to crack?
And undoubtedly knowing something about the missing Gotham Gothic. And I have a feeling that Batman and Robin are going to be on our tails tonight, making our task that much more tricky.
How so?
Well, to the world at large, they're known as the Caped Crusaders, fearless crime fighters. Whereas, due to the nature of our operation, the same world at large looks on us as criminals. Only a very few know different.
Sure does sound tricky.
So I'll turn my Hornet sting to half maximum power. I don't want to get careless and hurt Batman if we clash.
Well, you always have your gas gun.
Right. And nothing must stop us from gaining our ends.
I guess the thing I did like about the portrayal of the Hornet and the way that he was kind of a vigilante is that's kind of how Batman is portrayed in, many of the comics and movies. And so it was cool. It was almost like seeing a later iteration of Batman meet the Adam West Batman in a strange way. Like the way that they treated the Green Hornet felt like the way you would treat Batman in another version.
That's an I didn't think about that, but you're right. I mean, and that would be... I mean, Batman certainly wouldn't be coming in now and trying to get a piece of any action, but he certainly would come in and muscle in and take people down quickly instead of, trying to get clues and feed them into the Bat computer.
Yeah.
So, now after this, they head out, and now we get Pinky confronting Gumm. It's like I said, it's got to be hours later because there was lunch, then there was the stamp shop, and then there was Pinky realizing what's going on, and then we got nighttime, and Hornet's getting ready to roll, and now we have her telling him, I know what's going on here. So he takes her, he's smart at least, he takes her hostage. And this is when he makes the mention of the big kill at the stamp exhibition. Again,
yes,
this is reminding me more of a first season episode because we're getting these little hints as to what the final end of this whole plot is, which we don't get in a lot of second season episodes, and I didn't appreciate it as much as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like a classic first season episode to me. 'Cause I've been rewatching the first season. I haven't quite made it through the second yet, but because I just got the Blu-ray set and I'm like slowly rewatching Batman, and yeah, it felt on par with one of the earlier episodes, which was really cool.
Yeah, I have to admit, we get Batman and the Green Hornet descending on the factory. The Batmobile shows up first.
No sign of Black Beauty, Robin. We must have beaten it here. There's an alley around the corner. We can hide the car there.
So we get a little Batman theme, and then they pull away to go park and hide and wait out, and then the Black Beauty pulls up, and we get the transition in the incidental music to the Green Hornet theme.
No Batmobile. Good. We can get some work done first, and fast.
I always love things like that. That's how you know you're really getting a crossover. It's like, did you ever watch The $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman?
Yes, my uncle was a huge fan, so I used to. He showed it to me. We used to watch this and that.
Ah, okay, there you go. Because there's a whole multi-part crossover thing with the two of them, and it culminates in them making a run for something. And what they basically do is they intermingle the two themes together rather coolly, and that's what I liked here about this as well. It was a nice touch.
Oh yeah, it was great. It's always fun to see those motifs mixed.
Yeah. Now we get Batman and Robin following them by, and we don't get the back climb because he says, we'll there's a window over there, we'll climb up it. It's quick. We cut right to the window where we see Hornet and Kato, trying to negotiate for their piece of the action with Gumm. And Gumm, of course, is, I don't know. See, this is the part, I guess, where I'm having the problem because I just don't think the Green Hornet would be that stupid to just sort of idly walk up to the entrance of a giant perforating and coiling machine and allow himself and for that matter, Bruce Lee to be pushed into it.
Yeah, but then we got to see them as cool stamps.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, logic isn't always the strongest point on this show. I feel like they're playing it more for comedy half the time. So it's almost fun to see them just like become vulnerable so we can get to that joke.
Right. Yeah. Things like that. You mentioned the stamp because they come out the other end and they're stamped and such. And I always have to wonder, there's things like that. I'm like, do those stamps still exist? Is there a collector who's got them, somewhere.
God, I hope so, because that's actually the image that it came to my mind as a kid. I did not, remembering this before I rewatched it, I did not remember Colonel Gumm. I did not remember Pinky Pinkston. Truly, the image that came to my mind was this machine and the Green Hornet and Kato coming out as stamps. Wow. It's one of the most iconic images from the episode for me. I loved it. I hope somebody's got a hold of them, because they were pretty beautiful. I bet they'd do it'd be cool if they did recreations of them as actual stamps, as like a tribute to the show. I don't know how many people would buy it now, but I hope many. I don't know. Batman 66 is a comic book, so I feel like there's a resurgence of love for the show.
Oh, yeah, no, there definitely is. And they got their, usage out of those stamps because, not only do we see them here, but later on, Gordon will hold them up. O'Hara will be holding them up in the office, and we get a nice wide shot, so we see them again.
Yeah. They're so cool.
They are. They are very cool. And the stamp provides a clue to Batman for the beginning of the second episode, which I also didn't catch as a kid watching it.
Yeah, it's fun to rewatch it, and then it's like, oh yeah, they set things up kind of nicely here.
Yeah. So, in they go, they're being perforated and coiled, and they're coming out as stamps, and that's when Batman and Robin swing into action with movie fight music accompanying them for this fight.
Oh, interesting. From the Batman movie?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they got their money's worth from that music because it's used throughout the second season. I don't know if we're going to see it or hear it in the third season because we barely hear the real Batman fight music in the third season. It's usually always Batgirl music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You'd be much more aware of that than I would.
I did find it interesting, though, that this time, because here's, Green Hornet and Kato, and Gumm takes care of them by himself. He calls for more boys to help with the fight.
Yeah. He knows that. He knows what he needs.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is that, in the fight, because, I've had some of my guests say, wow, you really pay attention to the fights. And I do. As a kid, whenever the music would start, my brother and I would fight until the music was over and then we'd stop fighting. So, with the whole Bam and Biff and stuff. So I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, look at this. First of all, Roger C. Carmel actually gets in some shots himself. It's not a stunt double. And he actually gets the final shot on Batman, knocking him into the glue pad.
Oh, that's so cool. I loved that glue pad, too. The fact that, if there's one takeaway from the show that I love, beyond, the set design and costumes, I have a lot of takeaways. But it's anything that's labeled. I feel like that's affected my comedy. Like, when I write stuff, those are my favorite jokes. You can see them in The Simpsons. It's so clear that, the Simpsons writers loved Batman, this iteration of Batman. They're, those heavy writerly jokes, the fact that it's clearly labeled. What is the name of the pad? Do you remember?
I want to just say it was Giant Glue Pad, but I think there was more to it.
Right. Even if it's just Giant Glue Pad, that's still so obvious. The fact that there needs to be a sign is amazing.
Well, even the sign for the giant perforating and coiling machine, and as we'll see at the beginning of the second episode, it's not just a simple matter of let's take out a can of spray that'll remove the gum. It's Colonel Gumm's instant glue off or something like that he sprays, and it's
he's an entrepreneur.
Yes. Oh, although I have one question, maybe because this has really been bugging me. When we open up with the second episode, they're not doing the full recaps anymore. It's just a quick, this is what's happening right now. Batman and Robin are in danger. How will they ever get out? And William Dozier makes the comment, for you, several man hours have passed, but for Batman and Robin, it's been seconds. What's a man hour?
That's a good question. I guess.
How does it differ from an hour? How does it differ from a female hour? Or a woman or a woman hour?
Well, maybe it's time we talked about the bird hours and the bees hours, John. You see, when a man hour loves a woman hour very much, all right, I'll leave it to you.
Of course, considering how later on we're going to have that scene with, Aunt Harriet's hairdryer blowing the electricity and Batman getting frustrated and saying, all for a woman's vanity, everything is hopeless now. I'm thinking you could make the joke that a female hour lasts a lot longer than a man hour does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God. I love always like looking at those little, as much as we've got Catwoman, who's this powerful female, villainess, and then we get Batgirl, who's able to kick butt and such, there's still a whole lot of, just, oh my God, the woman's place is right here, and look at this, and look at what this woman has done.
Yeah, it's definitely, the gender politics of the show are of the time for sure.
Yes.
Even in the comedy realm, but for the most part, at least, it's cool that there are a bunch of, powerful female villains.
Yes. No, absolutely, there are. So, Gumm removes them with his gum remover, and, I'm like thinking, wouldn't anybody think to just hold them as you do it? But no, they just start punching Gumm and his men, knocking them to the side and heading over to the machine, giving Hornet and Kato a chance to escape.
Yeah. I was surprised that they were still in the machine.
Yeah, and of course we get this whole pseudoscience explanation from both of them as to why the Hornet managed to survive. But I think in the end, Kato gets the best line, as to how they were able to just hang out in a corner of the machine. And we are both quite flexible.
Of course.
He says it with such pride.
I love it.
Oh, he gets some of the best lines. There's a great philosophical line he's got later on that I want to hold off on. But for a guy who didn't get, and if you ever, like I said, I'll send you some of the episodes. I'll send you links and things like that. He didn't speak a lot in the series, actually, Kato. But when he does, he says a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a single on Kato, and he speaks.
Yeah. Gumm and his men escape with Pinky, who's feeding her dog Apricot Gumm's alphabet soup. And, I like this because now the two, Batman and Robin, because Hornet gets away too, because he's like, well, I really don't have anything on him at the moment. I mean, all he was doing was, he was in here talking to this guy. I don't know what conspiracy. I don't know. What could you charge him with?
Get back to me on that one. I don't know.
Okay. But we get one of the best bat tools of all in the entire series.
What's that? I guess I'm tired, but it looks like a bowl of alphabet soup.
Robin, have you noticed the J's, Q's, and Z's are missing?
Holy uncanny photographic mental processes.
Miss Pinkston expected Batman here tonight. No doubt she contrived to leave a message.
In the soup? Gosh, Batman. It's sure a good thing you brought that empty alphabet soup bat container.
Right, Robin? The right tool for the right job.
Oh, my God. That's my favorite. I'll save it, but that's my favorite bat gadget.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. There we go. In this episode, that's my favorite bat gadget. Maybe that or the funnel.
Well, I would assume that, well, no, I guess not. The funnel wouldn't come. Normally, you wouldn't have a funnel with a thermos because you want to,
No, it was made specifically for that.
Yes. And of course, once again, as we've mentioned on the episodes, although now I'm beginning to wonder, once he collects all the soup, he reaches behind him to put the thermos away. And as he walks off, we don't see the thermos anywhere hanging from the back of him, if you look really quick. So I've got this vision of like a stagehand right behind Adam West just grabbing them and then like scurrying off.
Oh, it's the best. Of course. There's just a guy that's like, all right, you on the thermos? Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So they head back to the Batcave, and Batman and Robin try to work out the meaning of the letters, and that's when Batman is told that Britt Reed is waiting upstairs. So he heads on up, leaving Robin behind to try and figure this out. And I'll tell you, I wonder if maybe there's also a little clue to why these two men do what they do. I mean, yeah, we've been all told Bruce Wayne, his father was killed, his mother was killed, and all that, but...
You're up early, aren't you?
Yes, Bruce, I'm worried about Pinky. Nobody answered at her apartment or the factory. Do you suppose something could have happened to her last night? All that talk about the Green Hornet and Batman? Incidentally, I should have told you this yesterday. I met Batman in Commissioner Gordon's office. He sends his regards.
Very thoughtful.
What kind of a guy is he, Bruce?
An enigma. I really don't know him very well, Britt. But if he tangled with Green Hornet last night,
the Green Hornet would have gotten the worst of it.
Well, that would be a switch. Green Hornet usually comes out the winner.
That's because you have no Batman in your city.
Oh, well, maybe. But I'm still worried about Pinky.
Well, Pinky seems to me to be a girl who can take care of herself. I wouldn't worry.
You know, as they're talking, they're going on about how, you know, it's not like the good old days when we used to really tear up the town and stuff. I mean, could Batman and, you know, the Green Hornet be a midlife crisis for the two?
I guess so. This does kind of feel like it. They're like, I mean, it's like an even more crazy version of an expensive car, except that they have the crazy cars.
Yes, yes. They just take it a step further and cosplay. Oh. So we cut back to the Batcave. Batman returns, and this is, again, like I said, love the Batcomputer, hate the Batcomputer, because this is how he figures it out. Let's feed the letters into the Batcomputer, and it will figure out what the warning is from Pinky.
Right. But Robin is stuck with everything. He's just sorting with a tweezer, which is he's just so fed up with it. He can't figure it out for a while.
Yes.
Poor Robin.
Poor Robin, but he's going to get now, at the end of this scene, he's going to get a nice little bit of, I wouldn't say comeuppance, but I actually, considering I thought he's been a little bit heavy-handed with some of his dialogue throughout most of these 2 episodes, this very ending here of the scene, when they figure out that, you know, Pinky's warning them about Gumm's plans for the stamp exhibition, and they're at the warehouse, although they don't know what warehouse it is, you know, Batman gets upset because the power goes out. The computer can't finish what it's trying to do in terms of finding the warehouse. And so he sits there all dejected, and Robin gets to be Batman.
And so, because of a woman's vanity, a battle may be lost.
Lost? I'm surprised at you, Batman. Many battles have been won before electricity and telephone were ever invented.
Gosh, Robin, you may be right.
Just arranged to have the stamp exhibition in the Constellation Room tonight well publicized. Then there's bound to be some action. And a bat climb up Gotham Towers West will help us flex our muscles. Chin up, old chum.
Yeah, that is true. That's good for Burt Ward.
Yeah. Right down to the slower delivery, you know, as he's you know, puffing in, and we'll flex our muscles and all that. And I just love it. I mean, Adam West was good enough to take that, at that point, what one might consider a dig, because, you know, they did have their issues with Adam West always taking longer to enunciate his scene, his lines and such, whereas Burt Ward, you know, being the eager, enthusiastic one, was just blurting them out sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it must have been fun for the editors.
Yeah. So we get to the warehouse that Batman and Robin cannot find, so they're going to have to head to the exhibition. And Gumm shares his theory about Britt and Bruce being Batman and the Green Hornet, respectively. And that's when they leave Pinky behind to get everything set up. And she has Apricot, you know, cut her. I'm thinking that dog must have some strong teeth to cut her ropes.
I mean, let's just see. Apricot's the real hero of this episode. We really need to see Apricot's own series spinoff.
You know, with guest appearances by Batman, Robin, and the Green Hornet and Kato?
Yeah. Maybe. I just want to see a Legion of Super Pets.
Oh. All right, well, then there you go. We could just bring in, like, 1 week we'll bring in Lassie, and another week we'll bring in, I don't know, who else?
Rin Tin Tin?
Rin Tin Tin, there you go, Rin Tin Tin. Or Max the Bionic Dog.
Oh, they're perfect. Okay, now I'm 100% on board.
See, there you go.
I started as a joke, and now I'm into it.
It's writing itself. So Pinky makes it back to police headquarters. She tells Gordon about Gumm's theory, which she's now believing, but Gordon quickly squelches it because he points out that Batman and Robin are alive, because she was like, oh, we'll never figure it out because they're dead. So he squelches it for her, and, you know, she knows that something's going to happen at the stamp exhibition, so Gordon's like, let's move out. And in one of those rare, again, you know, moments in the first and second season, Gordon and O'Hara are getting out of the office.
Yes.
Yeah. So they get to go to the exhibition itself. And here again, you know, Britt's preparing for the final showdown with Batman and Robin.
seem thoughtful.
We're heading for another clash with the Caped Crusaders, and I don't like it.
Why not? We've never run away from trouble before.
Yes, but this double identity poses extra problems this time. We know they're heroic crime fighters. They think we're criminals. We must come out on top, but they mustn't suffer.
Kung Fu is Kung Fu. It's not child's play.
I know, but our tricks are going to have to be tempered with good judgment.
And once again, Bruce Lee gets the best line, Kung Fu is Kung Fu.
Oh my God, that's the takeaway quote from the episode.
That's it. Our best line is Kung Fu is Kung Fu, and our best character is Apricot.
You know what? I revised my pitch for a show. I want it to be Kato and Apricot teaming up.
See?
Kung Fu is Kung Fu, and pink dogs are pink dogs.
And pink dogs are pink dogs. So we do finally get, as you know, because I mentioned earlier how they did the climb up to the side in the first episode. We didn't get the back climb, but we get one here as Batman and Robin head up the exhibition building to a window, and we get a window cameo, one of the last few ones, because once we get to the third season, there are no more window cameos. And this is an interesting one. Edward G. Robinson.
A dynamic duo. There are other ways of getting into this building, you know.
But none that provide the element of surprise that we need. What are you doing in Gotham City?
Well, some of the paintings from my collection go on exhibit here tomorrow. I wonder if some creative artist couldn't capture the two of you on canvas.
Perhaps the Cubistic school.
Oh, never.
Pop art?
No. I think canned tomato soup is to eat, not to frame and hang on a wall.
Dali? Picasso?
Bit of an art buff yourself, aren't you, Batman?
I'm afraid that crime fighting allows me only the luxury of collecting criminals.
But you should see the great mugshots we've got.
Robin?
Don't reprimand him. Who knows who posed for the Mona Lisa? Maybe one of the wickedest women in the world. Oh, but what a smile.
Yeah, listen here, see?
Yeah. Now, he was an avid art collector himself, but he was actually on the set, not on the set, but on the studios at that time, because he was doing, and I'll put up the YouTube video because I'm pretty sure it's still there. He was doing makeup tests for Planet of the Apes.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
He was going to be Zeus.
That's nuts. Yeah. And the fact that this window cameo felt a lot longer. I don't know, maybe it wasn't, and I just haven't watched many recently, but it felt longer than the others.
I would agree with you. It is a little longer. I mean, you're getting Edward G. Robinson to appear. You're not going to just, have him say a quick joke and off you go. So, no, I agree with you. I think that they did take advantage of the fact that he wanted to do it. And so they're like, yeah. And the thing is, with these window cameos, they were written on the spur of the moment. It was like, you're going to have to cut something else because Edward G. Robinson's in the building. He's in the studio. We're doing something today with him.
Man, you got to give him a meaty part.
But it got me thinking, like, what got cut then to accommodate that? In his case or the others?
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of Batman scripts that are not the final shooting scripts, including the third season Riddler one when Frank Gorshin returned to the show. And it's interesting to see that in the original version, the reporter Bulldog something, she is not a she, she's a he.
Interesting.
And they turned her into a woman so this way Riddler would have a mole. Probably, and my guess is that Frank Gorshin's like, wait a minute, where's my woman? I've always had a woman. But I mean, I would love to see the original episode script for this if there is, and see what had to be cut. Because like you said, especially this one, this is a little longer. So maybe about 2 minutes of pages, 2 minutes of script gone.
Maybe.
Yeah. So Gumm arrives at the exhibition as Senor Barbosa, that was the name, a renowned stamp collector. And, very quickly the Hornet arrives, followed by Batman.
Let's make our move.
The Green Hornet! And the Caped Crusaders!
this is really what, when most fans say, oh, we love the Batman Green Hornet crossover, it's because of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, that fight is awesome. It really was like, that was as a kid, I'm like, I don't know who the Green Hornet and Kato are, but I am on board.
And it's interesting because at first, they're all just fighting Gumm's goons. They're not fighting each other.
It's a good thing those guys aren't outside, even though they don't know it.
It's only at some point there, Kato gets a shot in at Robin, or Robin gets a shot in at Kato, and then it all switches to the four of them while...
It's a good thing those guys aren't in town every week.
Gumm's men sort of back off. And it's interesting because, like, the official Batman Batbook and a couple of other sources have said that Bruce Lee was like, I don't lose. Like, Robin cannot defeat me. And for that matter, Adam West and I think Van Williams also felt the same way. They were like, yeah, no, the Hornet doesn't lose, Batman doesn't lose.
What do we have here? A Mexican standoff? A dead heat? A photo finish?
So they were like, okay. And we even get the line in there because the one of the producers said, we'll make it a Mexican standoff, and you guys just keep swinging at each other. And they worked that line into the actual episode.
That's really funny.
Yeah. But it does give us, though, like I said, this great fight. And so, of course, Gumm and his men are like, we got to get out of here. Let's go grab Pinky. We'll use her as a hostage again. So, of course, in all that confusion, that gives the Hornet and Kato a chance to get away. And see, this is where I guess another little problem I have is that, it's like, we'll just go out the window and go around. I'm like thinking, why hasn't Gumm moved out already? We gave him way too much time for Batman to maneuver in and grab him.
Yeah. I mean, they were a little slow on this one, a little bit. Yeah,
if they had more of a sense of urgency, like when reprints caught Pinky listening in on the phone conversation, a little more sense of urgency, they might have won.
I blame it on their lack of sense of urgency. Yeah. If only he had some bat sense of urgency spray. I think one of my favorite lines, and I don't know if it was from this scene, sorry, I'm all out of order with my notes, was Batman saying, like, you satanic mad stamp man. And Colonel Gumm goes, satanic? No. Mad Stampman? Perhaps.
Yeah. I think that was actually from when they were stuck on the wall, possibly.
Oh,
but great.
Boy.
Yeah, there's just some really just great dialogue, great lines throughout this whole thing. Even with the... And I'll say it. I mean, yeah, there are some plot points that I'm like, huh? But, in the end, I'm actually finding I like this episode better than I gave it credit for, and certainly as a kid didn't give it as much credit.
Oh, it really does hold up. I just enjoyed it through and through.
Yeah.
How does it wrap up again?
Well, wraps that we're back at the restaurant, and there's Bruce, once again talking to Apricot as well.
Right, the restaurant.
Before we even get that, Bruce helps sort of clear the air as far as who Batman and Robin and Green Hornet is.
Right, he makes the call from the restaurant but as Batman, and then he walks up and...
Exactly. So Britt can't be because she was just talking to Batman on the phone, which is always something I found hysterical. It's like, I mean, what if I just called you a little later on and said, hey, Justin, it's Batman? Would you be like, oh, Batman, hey, what's up?
Oh, hey, good to talk to you. I'm glad that you're very casually calling me on the phone.
Yes.
Yeah. I would be thrilled. Who am I kidding? If you called me and were like, hey, I'm Batman, I'd be like, oh, cool. I have so many questions.
All right, all you friends of Justin, you now know to call Justin and tell him you're Batman and maybe Robin and the Green Hornet while you're at it and Kato.
Yeah, Apricot, please. Please call me as Apricot.
Please call me as Apricot. So, of course, we end on the light note there as Bruce continues to feed Apricot and we get the credits rolling. Now, I just want to take a few moments to look at a few aspects of this episode. In particular, we started off with Colonel Gumm. And like I said, as a kid, I thought he was one of the weakest characters. But as an adult, I can see some of the touches put into him. I mean, he's better than Archer. He's a master of disguise. He's knowledged in stamps. He loves alphabet soup. Have you read the Hornet comic yet?
No, not yet.
No, I haven't either. I've got it on my Kindle, and I want to sit down and I really want to absorb it. I don't want to just go through it quickly.
You got to soak it up. Sometimes we tear through things, and then it's like, wait, it's over?
Exactly, yeah. And something like this now, especially with my having more of an appreciation for the episodes themselves, I really want to see if they played up those things and remembered to include them in that miniseries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I imagine they probably do, just because the people who are writing it love that material so much.
Yeah. Now, the Goons, again, we're back to having some characters that, and again, like you said, it's supposed to be, we're focusing on Green Hornet and Kato, but Colonel Gumm manages to shine in his own way, even though he doesn't get a credit. And the Goons, you would think that they wouldn't have much in the way of dialogue, because we're already giving out dialogue to everybody, they're still pretty well represented with characters like Reprint, Canceled, and Block. And did you happen to see who played Block?
No, who was it?
That was Alex Rocco.
Who's Alex Rocco?
Alex Rocco is a character actor. Facts of Life?
Oh,
Joe's
okay.
father.
That's crazy.
That's Joe Polnichek's father there as Block. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And apparently, I just learned this actually on listening to Ken Reed's podcast the other day, TV Guidance Counselor. Apparently, Alex Rocco was responsible for starting the mafia wars that happened in Boston years ago, because he was hitting on someone's girlfriend or something like that, and eventually he had to make a run for it, and he went out to Hollywood and became an actor. Way to hide in plain sight.
That's kind of nuts.
But yeah, the Goons get a nice showing in this episode. They're not just simply punching bags for our four heroes. They actually have a little dialogue and a little characterization to them. And I also just want to point out Diane McBain, who played Pinky Pinkston. She was also in the Mad Hatter episode from the first season. I don't know if you were aware of that. Have you gotten to Mad Hatter yet?
I've seen that episode, but she was in there?
Oh, yeah. Mad Hatter's mole. I can't remember her name, but she, Jervis, you pixie.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. I love it when they bring people back.
Yeah. I recently got the opportunity to friend her on Facebook, so I'm trying to see if I can get her to come on the podcast and talk about her experience on both episodes.
That would be so cool.
It would.
Yeah, I know she's an activist now.
Yes, she is. Yeah. So, all right, Bat Gadget, I think we're both in agreement.
Yes, definitely the funnel and thermos, for sure. Right. My favorite. Although I'm going to give a shout out to that sticky wall, even though it's not a gadget. It was a villainous item, but man, I loved that sign.
Okay, now let me ask you this, because I do this in every episode. The official Batman Batbook by Joel Eisner, which everybody should get themselves a copy. He revised the book several years ago, and you can find it on Amazon. I've got links there. But he includes with each episode's listing a trivia question about the episode. So let's see if you remember. What paper, since Britt Reed was there for a newspaper convention, what paper does Britt Reed publish?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
What paper does Britt Reed publish? I don't know. I was not paying attention.
Okay. It was very brief. But again, it was another nice little... Because the paper does play a bigger part, obviously, in the TV series, as he's trying to have his star reporter... Because his star reporter is always trying to figure out who, the Green Hornet is. He wants to bring him down. And, he's kind of got to throw him off and such.
On police records, a wanted criminal, the Green Hornet is really Britt Reed, owner-publisher of the Daily Sentinel. His dual identity known only to his secretary and to the district attorney.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sounds like a very real paper.
Yes. And in fact, it's also, part of a whole, because it's the 60s, we couldn't just do the newspaper. I guess they were taking a tip from the Superman comics, because it wasn't just a newspaper.
Daily Planet.
They had the Daily Sentinel, but they also had Sentinel TV, just like there was the Daily Planet TV in the comics during the 60s and 70s.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right, so we come to the end of this episode. You are Robin the Boy Wonder. You are sitting in the Batcave. You've just watched this episode. You turn to Batman and you say, to sum up your whole experience of watching this, holy what?
Holy nostalgic trip through memory lane. Or I would also give you an alternate, holy on-the-nose vagina joke.
Okay. How did I miss that?
Batman saying, I smell pink.
Oh, yes.
I was surprised they got away with that.
Yes, you're right. I totally... And he's even doing the famous, because whenever he sniffs things, he has to bring his hand up to his nose and waft it even more.
It was amazing. I could not believe it. I know Adam West, you sly pervert. And I mean, pervert in the best of ways. He knew what he was getting out there.
Yeah. Wow. I completely missed that. And I'm usually pretty good because there are, sometimes you're like going, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
But this one, I went right over my head.
It was amazing. I was like, I did a double take. I was like, what? Did he just say what I think he said? Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Anyway, so you can take your pick between nostalgia and the word vagina.
The word vagina. Oh. So, but you enjoyed it though, looking back. I mean, like you said, this is the first time you watched it since a kid.
I mean, I bought the Blu-ray immediately when it came out, so I just have to. I can't watch too many of them back to back since they are two-parters. Like you were just saying about the Green Hornet comic, I kind of want to take my time with it because once it's over, I'll rewatch them. I used to watch them kind of as a Thanksgiving marathon. That was my introduction, so I would watch them all at once. So I kind of want to take my time with each one.
I can appreciate that. And then as you're going through, you just, like we've been doing here on the podcast, noticing little things where the wheels start to come off a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But that's, it's cool to see that it was a real thing. And, being somebody who makes things, it's cool to see like what worked and what didn't work. And, it's certainly an influence for me. I really love this show.
Well, I would say holy duality. Because and I'm still of two minds about this episode. I still have a problem with it being an episode with the Green Hornet. And like you, I never watched the show as a kid. I just was like, this doesn't... it felt weird. It felt wrong as a kid. And today, as an adult, I know, because I've seen the series, it was an entirely different show. Trying to shoehorn it into Batman's format was not the best idea. And yet, there are moments in this story that really shine. I love the Britt Bruce moments. I'm impressed that for as much as we'd like to see Batman and the Hornet together, Adam gets a lot of costumeless screen time, and I'm a big proponent for Adam West being Bruce Wayne and getting that opportunity.
I love any Adam West I can get in any dosage is my favorite.
Yeah.
Just as Adam West or as Bruce Wayne or as Look Well.
Look Well. I love Look Well.
It's amazing.
Here's my headshot.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. So, before you go, though, you got to tell people now, how are they going to be able to, get Batman the Animated Podcast into their iPhones, computers, and such?
Well, it's on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud. You look up Batman the Animated Podcast. I'm on Twitter at BTAS Podcast. At Hey Justin, if you want to follow my personal Twitter. I also have another podcast called Before You Were Funny. We bring in comedians. They bring in their worst, oldest material, and then we do a live table read and make fun of it along the way. It's real fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've made mention of it, but I haven't had a chance. I didn't realize that was what the premise is. Now I got to check that out, too.
Yeah, check it out. There are some Batman sketches people have brought in. Dan Harmon, the creator of Community, brought in his Batman fan film that he wrote when he was a kid. So if you look up that episode, it's real fun. I think I read an old review of a Batman episode at one point. So it's real fun.
Very cool, very cool. And, of course, I'll put links for all this as well in the show notes for the show when we release it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, folks, that's going to do it then for this episode of the Batcave Podcast. Tune in next time.
Next week, Victor Buono returns as King Tut.
Robert Long returns to talk about King Tut. Now, so far, King Tut has not fared well with any of our guests, not fared well with me. Perhaps Robert can bring a new perspective on the old man in our podcast. So that's going to be actually next week because we're playing a little catch-up here, folks. So stay tuned. That'll be next week here on the feed. So until then, citizens, thank you so much for listening. Justin, thanks once again. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening, chums. I don't have a bat phone, but you can contact the Batcave Podcast through its Facebook page, Twitter, email at thebatcavepodcast@gmail.com or by phone at 888-866-9010. Subscribe to the podcast via Libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. Or through iTunes. The Batcave Podcast is part of a series of pop culture podcasts from the Chronic Rift Network. Find them at chronicrift.com. So until next time, citizens, same bat time, same Batcave Podcast.
What's the matter?
I smell pink.
You're just tired.
No, I mean, I really smell pink. The color pink. Pinky Pinkston.